Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Open Mic Comedy Podcast. I'm your host, Mark. This is your first time here. Welcome. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. This podcast is here for everybody on the open mic comedy circuit, whether you're a comedian, an MC, a promoter, or a tutor, and even comedy fans who do enjoy watching the stars of the future in those dingy pub basements. If you're thinking I could do that, then this podcast will guide you on what to expect on this crazy circuit from those right in the middle of it. Today's guest is not Devontae. He did skip the Joe Rogan University, and he is actually the current Max Turner Prize winner for 2025. So please welcome to the stage, it's Kwami Odoom. That was the wrong one.
I mean, I would take that. I would take that. No, give me the air horns, man. Oh, yeah. Boom, 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 boom.
The dreaded gong noise.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How you doing?
I'm okay. Looking forward to this. This has been
yeah.
You reached out, but you've been, believe it or not, you've been on my list for a long, long time.
Oh, have I? Oh,
yeah.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I just, I've been listening to it since the beginning, man. Yeah. And yeah, I was like, you haven't done it with me, but I've done this podcast like tens of times as I answer the questions along in my head with everyone else. But then having said that, I know that you're going to ask me every single question. I'll be like, I've got no answer for you, mate. I've got nothing.
So how did it all start for you then, you in comedy? Because your background isn't primarily comedy, is it?
No. I'm an actor, theatre maker. I guess the classic answer is like, I've always, I guess, tried to be, and hopefully have been the funny person in like friendship groups, always trying to make people laugh. And I always loved watching comedy in various forms. So I was a big watcher of like Mock the Week, panel shows like that. And also just sort of back in the day when you used to get specials on TV much more often. Like I watched the Lee Evans one over and over again and the Chris Rock one. And it just sort of like, it never really occurred to me that I could do the stand-up comedy, even though I was like, oh, that looks so cool. I really enjoy it. Yeah. And it was only when I sort of started working as a professional actor that other friends that I knew who either were actors or had been sort of going towards acting at the same time as me, then sort of veered off, and quite a few of them started doing stand-up comedy, which made me realise, I guess, that it was slightly more accessible than I thought it was, and sort of gave me I suddenly went, oh, there are courses. Oh, okay. I didn't realise that was an option. Yeah. And so I'd done the playwriting course at the Soho. And so I knew they had a stand-up one. And somehow for years, like literally about 2-3 years, even though they do multiple a year, every single time I looked at the website, I just missed the application dates until, was it 23? Yeah. So this time, 2023, that I looked and it was open, and I was like, oh my God, it's my time. I can do this. And basically said to myself, I was like, cool, you've been thinking about doing this. You're going to apply. If you get it, you'll do it. If you don't, cool, it's not meant to be. You won't do stand up. That's fine. You're acting, doing other stuff. And then luckily got onto it, kind of went from there.
I guess that's kind of the nice thing, isn't it, about comedy, especially in the UK, is there's no gatekeeping. There's no one telling you can't do this. If you're not confident enough to just go and do it, there's courses to get you going. There's plenty of advice out there now to help you where to look and what to do. Whereas I guess there's a lot of industries out there nowadays which are there is some gatekeeping in terms of being able to get there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think just the open mic circuit is the lever, in that as an actor, for example, to get acting experience requires like auditioning for stuff, even if it's just fringe stuff, or like knowing someone who is putting on a play and has a part that is right for you. Yeah. And take so many different sort of elements coming together, of which as an actor, you're the last person to be involved. Whereas in comedy, there are nights for the very, very new people who don't require you to have like a good 5 minutes, or don't require you to send in a video. And so you can build up to the point where you can record a 5-minute video to then apply to the nights that like really need to see your material before you perform. So there is a way that you can make it happen for yourself, in a way that, at least, I mean, I know acting and theatre, and that's not really, it's just not as open as that.
Yeah. How did you find like the transition then from acting to doing stand-up comedy?
I found it quite easy, if I'm honest. Yeah. But, and I know a lot, and I've seen it, but a lot of people, like say, actors can struggle just because they sort of got on stage and like they find it hard to not play a character, and they don't quite have that connection. Mm-hmm. run a theatre company called The Pappy Show, and we do sort of devised physical theatre. But one of the sort of key things that we do is we don't play characters on stage, we play ourselves.
Okay.
So we start our plays by introducing ourselves, being like, "Hi, I'm Kwami," also, and so I was quite used to being myself on stage, talking to people, and also being put in positions, because of the way we structure the plays, being put in positions where you are being put in the shit a little bit and having to figure out, or saying, yeah, it's great if we fail, because that's what we want the audience to see. You want to see the person trying to figure out how to keep doing this sequence, even though it's gone slightly wrong. Yeah, it felt quite natural to me, actually. And I remember the first gig that I did where I didn't sort of just blank out for the entirety of the set.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, yeah, this is fun, man, and this feels quite right. I think it also helped that I started when I was in the middle of an incredibly dry acting patch. And so just having any kind of chance to perform felt like a real silver lining in my life at that point.
Okay. Let's delve into the funny and the sad as such. What's the best and the worst moments you've had on stage?
Yeah. The worst, let's do the worst. I think the bad gigs I've had have nearly always been when I've had expectations and they haven't matched up to it. Even if, the expectations, even if it went brilliant, it's just that my expectations were, this will be the best thing I've ever done in my life ever. So the one that sort of sticks out for me, sort of the first one, was the first time, and I know we're getting onto this already, but first time I did a gong show, I did Ding Dong Gong Show. Mm-hmm. And weirdly, I survived. I had one person put up the gong, but it was basically, I went going, okay, this is going to tell me if I'm good at this or not. This is going to give me some kind of indication about whether or not I can do this in front of a paying audience.
Yeah.
And it was a really bad night, as in for what Ding Dong Gong Show is, because hardly anyone turned up.
Okay.
There was maybe 20 people in the audience, if that. They moved all the acts into the back row to try and pad it out. And it got to the guy who ran it at the end was like, listen, this hasn't been the best night. You can have tickets to another night. We'll offer it out. And so it just meant that even though I survived, it just it was silent. It was quite dire. The atmosphere was really awful. And I remember just going, man, this isn't what I wanted. I've just been really disappointed because I built it up so much in my head that then I felt really disappointed. Even if it being a banging, well, I say this, even if it being a banging night and I'd been gonged off, I think that would have felt like a culmination of something. I would have got to and gone, okay, fine, I know where I am.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas actually I kind of left going, so it turns out that even when you get to the paying audience, you can still have bad gigs and bad nights. And it's not even necessarily because you're not performing well. It's just because sometimes the stars don't align. So yeah, that's the first sort of low moment I think I had in comedy. And then best moment, I did Tevin, who I know you know, he runs a night called Secretly Pissed.
Yes.
And I did that, and so basically the concept is that there's sort of 10-ish acts, it changes every time, but one or two of the acts gets drunk before they do their set. And then it's the audience don't know who it is, and the audience then have to guess who it is at the end. And I was the person who was drunk. And I turned up and I was like, yeah, I want it to be me. That's why I'm here. And I got abs. I was drunk. I was drunk. And I remember just sort of being backstage thinking to myself, having to have a pep talk with myself, just being lock in, right? Because you kind of can't see straight a little bit. And then I went out and just did probably the best gig I have ever done, which was a dangerous thing for me to discover. And and I say that, and the obvious thing is are you sure it was the best gig you've ever done? Or did it seem like the best gig you've ever done?
Yeah.
But it was really good. And people didn't really know I was drunk, which I was surprised by. But it's just that moment of I think it was just because the inhibitions were lowered and I just felt really confident. And so I was going into jokes being can't wait to get to this punchline because I know it's going to bang. Yeah. I know it's going to slap. And then, it did well. And it was sort of, I felt really, really competent. I felt really good at comedy in that set. Yeah. So I think about that quite a lot.
Yeah. It's always nice if the inhibitions are down or you know what you've got is strong.
Mm.
I did one the other day where I introduced music and props and I know no one was expecting it.
Mm.
And when I knew the room I was in, I thought this cannot fail. If this fails, I'm walking off. It can't fail. It absolutely, the room just erupted.
Yes.
And I was just like, gotcha. I can do anything from this point onwards. It doesn't matter. I've
that level
earned
of power.
Yeah.
You feel powerful. And I think that's a really amazing thing.
But then you do a gig the next time and you don't have those props and you don't have that sound and you go, it doesn't work. Like without it, it needs that. And you realize. Yeah.
And you just made me think as well, actually, some of the worst moments I have are when either it's like if I try a new joke and it goes amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, yeah. And I think sometimes I have this tendency to fall into like, cool, I've cracked it. I've got it. See that joke? Yeah, it's a great joke. That's just, I've leveled up to like the level of this joke. And then you go to the next night and you try the same joke and you like go into it being like, they're going to love this. And it gets nothing. You're like, what?
Yeah.
But I thought I solved my joke problems. Like that was the joke, the chosen joke. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sort of like crashing back down to earth and just being reminded that this is a subjective art form. Sometimes the joke isn't good. Sometimes the joke is good, but sometimes the joke is the joke and just the audience do or don't find it funny. Sometimes it appeals to them. Sometimes it doesn't appeal to them. And there's not much you can do about that. And actually that should be the thing that you enjoy, is like walking out and being like, cool, I think I know where you're at as an audience, but like, let's discover together whether or not this is your kind of material.
Yeah. I think there's a certain point where you need to be able to be adaptable to the audience as well. Because I was fallen into this thing where I do a routine about a 90s nightclub. And when it worked the other time, I was in front of an audience that were kind of my age. So they're all 40 plus pretty much. So they all knew what a 90s nightclub was and everything I described about it, the smells, the state of it, it hit. But then I do it in front of a room of mid-20s to 30s and they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And then you need to realize that, okay, I need to phrase this in a particular way or give a comparison or something. And even then, sometimes I get to the comparison bit and I feel like I've lost them already because they're like, well, I don't know anything about it. So I'm just going to sit here and just go, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. I think I have that with like location in that. So like the couple of times I've gigged outside of London, and when I went out to Edinburgh, I was suddenly aware that there are jokes I have that are quite London specific, not in that some of them because I name places in London and you need to know it, but also sometimes it's like you need to have a certain level of racial diversity. You need to have you just need to have a certain number of black people around for you to understand the kind of person or the thing that I'm talking about. And sort of those moments where I've got halfway through the setup and I'm looking around at people's faces and I'm just going, oh, you have no idea.
Yeah.
And it's just like that moment of just like, well, I've got to finish the joke now because I've started, but I think we all know this isn't going anywhere particularly funny for anyone.
Yeah. It's very strange with that kind of stuff. If you're of a particular age, you kind of think, oh, that audience are going to know. They're going to know. I had one line which was white Ben Sherman shirts as far as the eye could see.
Sure.
And to a 40-year-old, it's like, yeah, that's you just described a 90s nightclub from a male's point of view. For a 25-year-old, they're like, Ben who?
Yeah.
You're like, okay, knockoff designer shirts as far as the eye can see was the line that I changed it to. And even then you're like, because it's words that you're not used to saying.
Yeah.
It's so easy to fumble, especially with words that like begin and end with K's and things like that. And you're like, well, if you fumble it, you've lost it.
Yeah. I've discovered that with, I did some clean shows when I was in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And suddenly realized how fundamental swearing is to a lot of my, not necessarily like, just sometimes things, I just think things aren't funnier sometimes when you don't swear. You know what I mean? And like the joke is the same. The concept of the joke is the same, but that swear word just adds a sort of je ne sais quoi.
Yes.
And the same with like what you're saying, like the specificity of Ben Sherman is the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like people get knockoff designer, fine, whatever. But like Ben Sherman takes you back to a place and like places that image in your head in a way that sort of knockoff designer kind of isn't specific. It's a bit more vague.
It's like one of the things I said was, and all you could smell in the air. And I listed like perfumes like Dupe, Davidoff, Cool Water. And when I'm in front of the audience that I know, they're all like, you can see their eyes have gone back to the late 90s and gone, fuck. And then I finished it with, and the smell of Benson and Hedges. And they're like, shit, yeah. And all these new people are like, Benson and what?
Yeah, well,
smoking.
They're all being like, what do you mean inside? You can't smoke inside. That's not allowed. Do you mean raspberry vape? Like,
yeah. Sweet candy floss. It's like, no, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
But yeah, no audiences are the same. Your performances are very rarely the same. And it's being able to adapt to all of that is, I think that's such a key thing. So how did you find the Max Turner thing? Because that's quite a established kind of known competition in the London circuit, isn't it?
Yeah. It was cool, man. It was cool. So I've just had my wife just had a baby. So that was my first gig back. Before then, I'd been doing a play. So I hadn't been gigging for a long time. And so I kind of just went in with no expectations and a kind of like, well, it'd be cool if I get it. If I don't, like I've done competitions before and not got anywhere, like it is what it is. And weirdly, like I think the heat that I had was just, like we're saying, the audience just weren't there for a good time. Just because I think Sunday night, like early January, it's dark outside. But then the final was banging, man. The final was banging. And the thing I sort of took away from it was I really prefer not being in the room before I do my set.
Okay.
Which, I've said to people and they've gone, they feel very differently. But I think there's just something for me where I go, I can get myself like sort of like excited and then walk out and be like, cool, I'm going to meet all of you. Yeah. Whereas when I sit at the back of the room, I think I'm watching everyone else's sets, laughing at their stuff, but I'm also there going, okay, so the audience do like this kind of thing. Does that mean they're going to like this joke, or does that mean and I start prejudging and pre-evaluating how things are going to go. And then I walk up thinking, I start a joke thinking, well, this was the one that I think that they might not be that into.
Yeah.
And that's just not helpful for me. Whereas when I just walk out and be like, cool, this is the material I've got, because it's like there's the type 5 we're going through. I've done this a couple of times. I'm confident and I hope you like it. For me, that feels like a much more productive place to be in when I'm performing. But it's individual.
No, I guess that's actually quite an interesting thing when you're talking about competitions, because in a competition, it's all about the individual. But when you're part of a night putting on a show, you kind of almost want it the other way, because the whole event is the show, the audience, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. But when it's a competition, it's very much, who is the best at making me laugh? Kind of thing. Yeah.
If it's a night, if I'm just doing like a sort of open mic night and I know a lot of the people who are performing, I love being in the audience and watching them, because I just watch them going, I think they're great. And like, that's a new joke. That's brilliant. I love that. Yeah. And I can turn off that part and I go, cool, and I'm going to go up and do my thing and see how it goes, but whatever.
Yeah.
But and also like competitions are just like, in general, competitions are weird. They do weird things to your heads. They do weird. And even when you know that they're kind of bullshit, in that like comedy can't be objectively judged, and the idea that you can pick the funniest person doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And like we said, like a different audience would respond to material very differently. And so like, don't get me wrong, I love that I won. It's great, course. Like really happy about it. But also end of last year was going for Leicester Square new act and got to the semi-finals, didn't get further. Same with Comedia in Brighton, got to the semi-finals, didn't get any further. So I'm also sort of very aware that like, if I can't let it mean something significant to me, other than just sort of like I got to do a really amazing gig at Dulwich Hamlet, and I got like some money, and like that's amazing, got a really good night. But it's not like and now I am a good comedian.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Because also the set that I did then was the same set I did for the other competitions that didn't get me to the final. You know what I mean? So if I'm going to go, okay, well that means I'm amazing, then I've got to then take the semi-finals as like, okay, well I'm not that good.
You're 100% right on that. It's you want to win, but you know that you can win it in one night and you can lose it in another night.
100%. And they were like, the other acts were brilliant, like absolutely brilliant. It was a great night. It was great getting to hang, because also when you do open mic nights, if you're in the room, you don't really get to speak to a lot of the comedians very much. You know what I mean? Whereas being out of the room meant that I got to hang out with a whole lot of people that I find really interesting and really funny. And that was great. You know what I mean? yeah, it's just like they're just weird, and everyone else was brilliant, and I'm happy it was me, but I'm also trying to be circumspect about the whole thing. You know what I mean?
No, I understand. So with your time kind of on this circuit, then how have you found the last year and a half, 2 years, what it's been, being like doing open mic comedy, and did you have any preconceptions of what it was going to be like before you kind of joined?
Before I started, I think I thought that the average quality would be higher, if that makes sense. And I don't mean that people are bad. I think I just I hadn't put in any thought into the process of taking new material, putting it on stage for the first time, going, oh, it doesn't work like that. Okay, I'll come back and try again and make it better. And so I think I was there going, when I turned up to my first night, I was thinking, I just really don't want to stand out as the person who's really never done this before, who's really awful, who doesn't have the ready material. And then I saw people doing it, and like they had jokes that worked and jokes that didn't quite work. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. Like it's just all a mix and everyone is working on stuff. And then also like, I think it's fun. When it's going well, it's just so much fun.
Yeah.
And like the sort of excitement to do another gig after you've done a good gig. I wasn't expecting that kind of high, you know what I mean? And then on like the flip side, I wasn't, I guess I wasn't expecting the amount of like astoundingly offensive material that some people will come out with. And just sort of in a, like, to the level where you're like, there are people out here talking about like cancel culture and like PC gone mad and all that. And I'm like, you can't have been on the open mic circuit in London, because the amount of jokes I hear and I go like, it's just, sometimes I think like, why would you? You know what I mean? Why would you? And so it's like, sometimes it's people are trying a thing and they're working on it. And I absolutely understand that. You know what I mean? Like there's got to be a place to work on stuff, and people want to push the envelope or are trying an angle and they haven't quite worked it. And then sometimes it's just like, man, really?
Yeah.
And me and a friend play open mic bingo, which is just like the topics that always come up.
Yeah.
And the goal is to like go to an open mic night and get the full card.
Yeah. I think the whole cancel culture thing is complete myth, because you can say whatever you want to say, but you have to understand there's a consequence to it. And there's certain rooms that if you should be able to judge beforehand what the room's like and how it's going to react to some material if you've got that is on an edge, if we call it that. The worst ones are when you see somebody that does something that's on the edge or very much over the edge, realizes it hasn't worked.
Far beyond the edge. Yeah.
Realize it hasn't worked and then keeps digging keeps digging. And everybody in the crowd is just thinking, no, you're suffering. We're suffering. There's a point where I think,
let's stop it.
Yeah. The act kind of needs to realize and go, okay, that was shit. Forget I even did the last minute. That's fine. Yeah. And I think everyone would kind of like go, yeah, okay, cool. I think in comedy, depending on the type of comedian you are, you want to make people think and have fun. And you may want to touch subjects that are sensitive to certain people, but it's when you see people that are punching down and that's the thing that I find.
Yeah. And for me, I guess when people are like, oh, you should be able to joke about anything or should be, and like, I agree to that, in that anyone should be able to talk about any topic. But I kind of view it in the same way that I go like, well, anyone should have at the beginning the opportunity to become a doctor.
Yeah.
But not everyone has the ability to be a doctor. You know what I mean? And same thing, I'm like, cool, like just because you are white doesn't mean you can't talk about race. Just because you're a man doesn't mean you can't talk about gender and all those other things. But also doesn't mean that you specifically will have an insight that is funny on it.
Yeah.
And you have to recognize that. I can't remember what TV show it is. There's a clip from a TV show, and it's in the TV show, there's like one of those like American like talk show, like, you know, like Fox News, where there's like four people around the table, and one person's like complaining about not being able to say the M word, and the black guy's like, well, cool, say it. Like, if you want to say it, say it. You know what I mean? And that's what I always think. I always go like, when people are complaining, I'm like, well, just write the joke then. If it's funny, it's funny. The best joke about race I've heard on the open mic circuit was told by a white guy, and it's great. Yeah. It's great. And his name is completely gone. Billy
Kerr.
That's so annoying. Sorry?
Kerr.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is this the one where he talks about his
It basically, yeah, like
friends,
his football team and stuff. Yeah, and he like flips between, and that thing. I actually think, like, I remember watching that, being like, that's brilliant.
Yeah,
like that is A, it's hilarious, and B, like, it is so smart what you're doing, and the fact that you're balancing saying those things which, like, on paper, like, are supposed to be offensive or whatever, but like the whole time when the audience watching, we're with you, going, cool, I know what you're doing, I know the joke, I know the game, I'm in on it, and I'm loving being part of it. And that's skill, you know what I mean? And so when people, so when people are like, oh, you can't joke, I'm like, you can, man. I've seen people do it. What you mean is you can't do it, and that's okay.
Yeah. No, you're 100% bang on with that. If you're going to make a joke about something that is slightly, don't make the victim the butt of the joke. The victim shouldn't be the butt of the joke. It's not, you can't feel sorry for the aggressor.
Yeah, man.
It's just a bit weird. It's a bit of a weird concept. I never quite understand why some people go down that route.
And I mean, when I've done gigs, they're not open mic, either like a paying audience or just sort of, and talk about levels, but you know what I mean? That kind of show, that those jokes have sort of almost dropped off a cliff. You know what I mean? And I don't know whether or not it's the people learn eventually that doesn't work, or that they don't really then progress onto those kind of shows. Yeah. But it does feel like there is, in terms of a meritocracy, like it kind of speaks for itself, in that you then don't get those as you progress.
Yeah. Yeah, no, very true.
But anyways, I could probably rant for a long time about that.
Well, these things are kind of, I think they're quite important to give people's opinions on. Not everything's wine and roses in this game. You know, there are things that you have to come across and things you may not like. For anybody that's thinking about giving it a go and listen to this, then, you know, just don't go into it thinking, you know, you're going to see the best comedians in the world on a stage in a basement in King's Cross or something like that.
But you might, you know what I mean? Like you will see, like, hear jokes that could go on live at the Apollo. Yeah. That day. Easy. You'll see sets that could go on live at the Apollo. I've definitely seen sets that I'm like, well, that if that was in a Netflix special, people would be sharing that clip everywhere, talking about how genius this person is. Yeah. Like, easily. But yeah, like, I think part of the reason it annoys me is maybe my biggest obstacle to getting bringers is when I've brought someone to a show and there's been like 5 paedophile jokes and 3 Hitler jokes. And I'm like, well, I don't think I'm going to be very convincing when next time I'll be like, do you want to come see this gig, like, on the other end of London from you? And it will be 2.5 hours long. So I'll go, well, if that's the kind of thing that I'm like, but it's a one-off, you know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah.
I understand. One thing I did want to mention was your acting career so far. Because I didn't realise this, and I feel really bad for not realising this until I did a little bit of research, is you're actually in one of my favourite TV programmes.
I feel like I know what you're going to say already. Yeah.
Death in Paradise.
Yeah, man.
And I'll tell you what, I when I saw the discography or the thing on the internet, I was like, oh, that episode. I went and looked and was like, fuck, I do. I remember that episode. It's one of those programs, isn't it, where there's lots of families, it's probably the older families who sit down and watch it because it's just light-hearted entertainment with a twist. And it's fun and the characters are good. I just watched that and I was just like, no, that's so cool.
It's you know what? It's so funny because that is the job that I've done. Of all of the jobs I've done as an actor, that is the one where I still have people being like, I recognise you from that. Or like when it came out, the amount of people messaging me being like, have I just seen you in Death in Paradise? Yeah. And I was like, what do you mean you watch Death in Paradise? Like, what do you mean you watch Death in Paradise? One of the best things that's ever happened to me in my acting career was my friend texted me. She just said, I was over at my nan's for dinner. And I was making a cup of tea while my nan was watching TV. And my nan just went, oh, he's very handsome. And then I turned around and it was you. It's just like, what? But yeah, man, it was. Listen, Death in Paradise is not like, you know what I mean, Amazon, like, hard hitting thing, but it is a brilliant show because people love it.
Yes, it's one of those. I wouldn't say, I don't know if cult show is too strong a word, but it's got a following, hasn't it?
I mean, I think it's the like other than Doctor Who, is the BBC's most watched show, like globally. Like it is so popular. I think it's really big in Russia as well, bizarrely, and really big in the United States. Yeah, I know. Yeah, no, I know. But I wish I should leverage that, shouldn't I? Get myself like a sort of headline tour. Well, I mean, after current geopolitics has calmed down.
Yeah, maybe.
But get the headline tour in Death in Paradise is quite.
How was that experience? Because that must have been. I mean, you're going to probably tell me now it was dull, it's boring, on a Caribbean island and all of that. Or you're going to now tell me. You know what?
I filmed it the tail end of COVID. So I guess I didn't have the full, like things had opened up there, but it wasn't really popping off. And they filmed it in Guadeloupe. So it was like warm, and I had like this hotel room, which had like my own little sort of swimming pool out the back. It was a small swimming pool, but it was a swimming pool nonetheless.
Yeah.
It was cool. There were bits of it that are kind of boring, like just because like when things are work, they're just never as glamorous. And you know what I mean? Like filming, it often means like really early mornings and then working, like stopping and starting, which is really difficult. Like, you know what I mean? You're on hold while they change the set around to do a different shot. And that can take 45 minutes and you're exhausted. And just as you've kind of like slumped, they're like, cool, we need you up and about and like ready to like do this thing. And suddenly you have to get really energized. I think the only tricky thing with that for me was that me and my now wife, before we got married, but we'd left our place and we'd moved loads, and we'd like house sitting for my grandma at one point, and then moving back to Bethnal Green and flipping around. And then I started rehearsals for a play, and it kind of overlapped with all of those things. And so actually I was very stressed the entire week, essentially. But it was really cool.
Greetings, listener. Sorry for the interruption. It's John the Pape from episode 41. If, like me, you're loving this episode, in the hot tub with 9 merchant sailors, listen to your higher self, consider giving it a 5-star rating, and follow the pod on whatever app you're using. It's the right thing to do, right lads? And Mark will be forever grateful. Now, our helicopter has arrived, so I must beg your leave. But please, enjoy the rest of this absolute humdinger of an episode. Jesus!
Also, you mentioned earlier, I wasn't aware of this, you've got a theatre company.
Yeah. We've kind of wound down for the most part. We're not actively doing stuff at the moment, just because the money situation in theatre is absolutely dire. It's just like, it's impossible to get anything done. And maybe sort of 10 years ago, in my early 20s, I would have been like sort of scrabbling around doing things for free, not being able to like pay myself is one thing. But, you know, having a baby and and also sort of just standards for what I want my living situation to be like, mean that, you know, you have to find ways of paying for stuff. And if we can't like pay ourselves even, then it's not worth it. But yeah, it was 10 years last year. Yeah, 10 years last year. The Pappy Show, we're called.
So what did that all involve then? Because I've got no clue. So educate me on what a theatre company would do and how they would work.
So, I mean, I guess a theatre company is just like at its most basic level, it's basically just a group of people or one or two people who make theatre. So sometimes theatres, like the actual buildings, will take on the job and responsibility of producing a play. And so they'll find a playwright and they'll find the director and cast all the actors, and then they put it on. But oftentimes they'll know a theatre company who are like make their own work and will do the thing of like, they've got someone in the company has written a play and they've got a director in the company who'll make it, and they'll find their own actors and they'll go, cool, we'll give you X amount of money and we'll give you a run of like 3 weeks, say, in this theatre that we have, and we'll split the box office this way. And so sometimes you either have the theatre building producing it, or sometimes you just have a company. And often there's sort of like, and then they'll do co-productions where like they'll both put in certain amounts of money, or like it'll be both or whatever. But so essentially we made like work that we enjoyed once it was made, or when it was like while we were in the process of making it, we would speak to a theatre and say, hey, we've got this thing. Do you want us to do it at your theatre? And often they said no.
Yep.
But sometimes the theatre said yes. And like in the same way that I guess a comedian isn't just going straight to a national tour or isn't doing like a solid like run at the O2. Often it means you're doing sort of like 1 or 2 nights at a theatre somewhere and running around trying to get the last train back from Manchester because you didn't have money to pay for accommodation. So that's, and then we kind of got to a point where we were doing longer runs and working in bigger theatres and doing cooler stuff. But the problem is that as you get better at stuff and you get more capable and do better things, it just takes more money to be able to do that. So 2 years ago, God, my sense of time is gone. Maybe last year, we produced, the National Theatre does a schools tour. So they produce a play that goes on a tour around schools, but gets performed in schools. And it was our theatre company that made that show and then toured it around schools, which was really cool. So we're we're doing really well. But again, there's just no money in the arts, man. There's absolutely none.
Yeah, it's you kind of tell that from like the comedy circuit, the open mic circuit, and stuff like that, and you kind of think, how do some of these places just keep going? Because
man.
I've had discussions recently with people about geography when it comes to comedy. Like in certain areas, you'll get certain crowds. You know, they're probably like within London, it's very much a kind of a certain dynamic. You move outside of London, it's pretty much more the race of people changes. In that it's very much white outside of London kind of thing rather than mixed within London. But then there's also part of it where people that come to these events, those that pay, act very differently to those that don't. In that if you don't pay, there's no investment from the audience. They could just sit there and just be whatever they want to be. But if somebody pays to go to something, I think something in their mind is a bit more, I paid for this, I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to let myself enjoy it because they've got that investment. Yeah,
definitely. And I think, like has been brought up on a podcast before, if you don't have your choice of a million different things every single night, then I think you appreciate the thing that does happen slightly more, even if you're not paying for it. But it's like you go, okay, this is something that doesn't happen every single day or multiple times every night. So when I go, I'm going to enjoy it rather than just either go, well, I can't be bothered because I could just go tomorrow or I could go the day after. And then you end up never going to any of them.
Yeah.
Or you go, cool, if I'm here, then I want to have a good time rather than just sort of ruin either by just being on my phone or like talking to my friends or whatever. I mean, some of my favourite gigs have been the ones that are outside London.
Yeah, they're not to shit on London or anything, but like you say, somebody can walk down the street in central London and they could go to a multitude of comedy nights.
Yeah, man.
So why are they picking your one? And if it's because it costs nothing, then do they really care?
Yeah, and do they? Yeah, you said like, what have they got to lose if they don't like it? They haven't paid anything.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. They could just leave and they feel like they got their money's worth.
Yeah, I've had people where I've stuck around. I've ended up virtually on last. And then people like, there's been a group of lads there that I thought, I've gone through the whole night going, I've got jokes for every single one of you. You're perfect for this. And then before I get on stage, they've left.
Oh,
and it's just
man.
No, damn it. I'm sat here.
Yeah.
And all I'm doing now is talking to the 2 promoters and 3 other comics that have sat around and the mate I brought with me.
Yeah.
And it's just like, shall we just not do this?
Just sack it off. Like, who wins from this?
I know, but it's just odd at times. But there's also the point that is that when you have those, to appreciate the good, you have to have the bad or the non-perfect nights as well.
Yeah. I mean, if they were all the best nights ever, I wouldn't say no to trying it.
Yeah,
but also like I think you learn. Especially starting out, you learn so much from the nights where it doesn't go perfectly. We spoke about showcases, and the showcase on the Soho course was awesome, and like performing at the Soho, amazing.
Yeah.
But also like they wanted us all to win, and so they would have laughed regardless of how good our jokes were. And there are jokes that I told on that night that now I don't do because I'm like, then either they're not that good or like they're like everyone has done that joke or various versions of the theme. But it's when, you know, you do a night that's not going great, but you have one joke that's a new joke and it does really well.
Yeah.
And you go, cool, well, I know that's a good joke then, because they're like, they weren't responding very much to other stuff, or they weren't responding to jokes that I know do well most of the time.
Yeah.
And so if the joke has done well, then there must mean there's something to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
And also that resilience, you need that as a comedian, man.
Yeah. You really do.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody understands it until you've done it. And if you've ever been on stage and you've basically spoken for 5 minutes and had nothing back,
just a sweet, blissful silence. Oh, yeah, it's painful, man.
There's a point where you just kind of feel like if I walked off this stage, no one would notice I wasn't here anymore.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah.
But it's. I mean, that kind of segues nicely onto kind of our next question is like your joke writing. Do you have a process or anything? Or
the one thing I'm desperate to get better at is writing jokes. Not necessarily in the writing better jokes, but just the process of writing jokes, because I don't really do it. Often, the joke, it will either be that I'm talking to my friends and I'll say something funny and they'll laugh and I'll go, oh, that was quite good, that actually, I think. And I'll write it down and then maybe have to do like some slight engineering or editing to get the setup to work. But what I am not able to do is look at a topic, go, oh, I think there's something in that, and then write down all of the things that I think about it, or like do sort of like a mind map and like connect things and then go, cool. And now I've crafted this joke out of a topic. It's literally like, I will just sit there on the tube or on the toilet or like talking to someone.
Yeah.
And it like the punchline will just come into my head and I'll go, oh yeah, that's it. And that's like great sometimes because you're like, oh, joke that I wasn't even expecting to get. But most of the time, like I can't sit down and do like a writing session, because I would just sit there, just sort of talking or writing around the subject, getting absolutely nowhere and doing nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that's especially when it comes to, if I ever get to a point where I'm wanting to like write a show, I need to be able to guarantee that I write jokes about a certain topic rather than just sort of doing a mishmash of like everything that's come into my head ever.
Yeah. I think there's the definite distinction I'm finding out now about talking about something funny, but making it funny. There's the points where you can be talking, you've got a topic you're talking about, but there's actually no jokes in it. Do you know what I mean? The whole concept and the premise is funny, but there's no jokes. So you're not conveying to the audience, okay, this is the bit you laugh at because I haven't delivered it in that kind of way.
Yes, and I think, and often the thing that people want a comedian is want you to take, if it's like, say, a subject that everyone knows, they want a perspective that they hadn't thought on, or like a reframing of something.
Yeah.
And so the laugh comes from like, oh, I hadn't thought of it like that. You know what I mean? And if you just go, oh, isn't it funny that this person always does this thing? Or like, I think it's in, what's the book that everyone reads? It's really good.
Adam Bloom.
Yes. Yeah. And I think he talks about the difference between writing a joke and the jokes, the not jokes where people are just pointing at a funny thing and saying, isn't that funny? And I think, like that's exactly what you said, is that it's easy to go, oh, that's a funny thing.
Yeah.
Look at it. And it's not so easy to be like, here's a thing. And like, you might have thought it was normal, but as you turn it on its side, you suddenly see that it is hilarious. Mostly where people are like, you know what I mean, are trying to get, at least that's where I'm trying to get to, is that be able to do that consistently with a process so that I can sit down and go, even if it's not the best joke, I'll have a joke by the end of it. Whereas right now I just sort of sit there and go, yeah, no, got nothing. Which is deeply frustrating.
Oh, I'm with you on that. Sometimes I'll get flashes in my head and go, okay, there's something here, and I start writing it. And I've recently done it. I've curated like probably 2 minutes worth of material that I personally think is really funny. And I've written it down and I've gone through it and I've gone, there's no jokes in it.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
But the problem is the thing with it is, I think it requires, the funny comes in my frustration when I talk about it, and it goes on to like a rant. But I can't. awkward thing for me is I can't do that until I do it on stage. I can't do it off stage because it's just not going to have the passion and the feeling behind it. And the moment I do it on stage, and if it doesn't work, it's going to be horrible.
Yeah, and then it's just an angry man ranting about things.
Yeah. It's a bit of a weird one.
Yeah.
But on jokes themselves then, what's your favourite joke?
What's my favourite joke? I think I've got a bit that's my favourite, probably, which is I do a bit about some guy trying to mug me, and basically it starts off me talking about how I know the script for it. Basically, the joke is that the mugging for a script and a chat up are the same. It's just about how you deliver it.
Yeah.
And that because that bit is probably the one where came from a story that actually happened to me, where I got mugged by someone who someone tried to mug me, and I think it was his first time. And it was just like this really awkward thing where like I wasn't really sure what to do because no one had ever tried to mug me before. Yeah. But like he clearly was. And I remember saying to someone and being like, I didn't know whether or not he was hitting me or mugging me. And I was like, oh, cool, there's something there. And that's pretty much the only bit I have where I like worked it, funny topic, funny idea to specific jokes. And I did a thing that I learned in Soho where you write down the two topics and like you find the things that are in the middle and all that kind of stuff. And so I felt really proud. Once I got there, I was like, I feel really proud of this bit because I've managed to craft it. So there's that. But to be honest, probably my favorite joke is one of the ones that I open with, purely because this is what I'm like, I think comedy is so funny because the joke that I wrote is not the joke that people laugh at.
Okay.
So the joke I open with, basically I go, oh, like, obviously I'm mixed heritage. My dad is a black one, my mum is white, or as we in the mixed community like to call it, El Clasico. Which, like, I think is quite fun and like, but I wrote it very much just thinking about El Clasico as in the name of the game between Barcelona and Real Madrid.
Yeah.
And people really laugh at it who have no idea about football. Oh, okay. And I've spoken to them and they just find it funny that I'm identifying that like a black dad and a white mum is almost like trope levels of common when it comes to mixed heritage people. And I'm calling it El Clasico rather than just that's the kind of joke and it works and that's great. But I just find it so funny because I walked on stage being like, I'm going to make this joke about football.
Yeah.
And everyone went, I love that joke that had nothing to do with football. You know what I mean? And it's just like, so, because when people are like, oh, well done, I'm like, listen, like, that's the luckiest joke I think I've ever written because the joke that I wrote apparently isn't that good because no one gets it.
I get it. But yeah.
Thank you. And I appreciate you for that. Like, and I know like it works. I guess it works on two levels for the people who do get football, but like, it just sort of goes to show about you can't fully control how your jokes are received.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now I know that that's the joke. Like I can lean into that or I can use it. And now I am telling that joke.
Yeah.
But I think it's just so funny that a thing that I thought was like clever, like might have been, but I got there completely unintentionally.
I love that. It's just, it's off the scale. It's not what you expected. And it's like, if it works, it works.
If it works, it works.
Yeah.
And you can do the sort of figuring out why afterwards.
So if you've got a friend comes to you and says, I want to try comedy, what's the piece of advice you'd offer them from your experience so far?
Oh, I guess basically I'd just say you have to do the gig, the first one. You just have to do it. You have to do it and get it out of the way. If only because, and I say this, when people are like, oh, I could never do it, it's so scary. Like I get it, and it often is scary, especially at the beginning, like terrifying. I've filmed my first gig and that's the only reason I know what happened because I blanked out. But I go, the first time you step on stage, maybe first few times, you've written all this stuff and you walk on feeling like people are deciding whether or not you as a person are worthy / are funny. Once I get the joke out, then it's just, I can just work on it objectively. Because if it's not funny, I go, cool, why wasn't it funny? What do I need to shift? If it was kind of funny, I go, okay, that bit I need to keep.
Yeah. Like
that element of it, but actually maybe like as you're telling it, and every comedian will have this, you're midway through like the setup of your, like of a new joke that you haven't told anyone on stage before. and you go, I'm just waffling.
Yeah.
Like none of this is required. None of this is necessary. This is just complete waffle. And the punchline is going to get hidden in all of this. And then it becomes like I'm not funny. It's literally just you go away, go, cool, next time I do it, I'm going to find the most concise way of doing the setup. Or you get the punchline out and realize that the punchline is really wordy and unclear. But that's the difference. Once you've done the gig, it goes from like, oh, am I funny to, okay, but how do I make these jokes funny?
Yeah.
And that is the perspective shift that you just need to get to be able to do comedy properly or to start properly like working on comedy.
Yeah.
Because it's not about you. Yes, there's stuff about like shuffling or holding the mic stand and mic technique and all of that kind of stuff. But even those are like objective things that you can look at and work on, separate from whether or not you as a person are now worthy to be on stage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you want to do it, get it done early, because it's so easy to talk yourself out of stuff. Like I never would have done it without doing the course. And they, midway through, you have to do comedy virgins. And we didn't know that until we were on the course. And it's like in week 5 or something of a 10-week course. So it's like halfway, like a lot quicker than you're expecting. And I ended up then doing a gig before that was my 4th gig, actually, the comedy versions, because I started getting so in my own head that I was like, I just need to get it done so that I can get to that point where I'm working on doing comedy rather than trying to work up the guts to do comedy. You know what I mean? So yeah, that is the advice I give people. Is just do it quick as possible.
Yeah.
Get that bit over with.
I think that's quite valuable. I also think you should. One of my little things is that if you get on stage and you're a storyteller, the moment that you realise you're just saying words that have no effect, like you just described, remember that feeling and remember how shit it feels, because I'm there on stage going, my mouth is saying these words, and my brain's going, what the fuck are you doing? What we didn't practice this. What are you doing? And it's getting that discipline. And it's not, anything I'm saying here is not easy. None of it's easy. As much as you can practice at home, you can walk around, you can put a camera up and all of that. I don't know about you, but my adrenaline levels and my heart rate are high before I get on stage. And you can't prepare for that until
no, it's completely, I think that this is where, I guess, being an actor really came in handy, in that I was used to being on stage in front of people and them looking at me. It's very different when it's comedy that I've written. Like that adds a whole new dimension to it. But at least the sort of like being on stage bit, and also the controlling nerves and pushing through to be clear and concise and communicate. Normally it'd be like other people's lines that they'd written, but this is like almost like lines I've written, but I try not to sort of learn things, especially new jokes. I try not to learn them. But because you don't know how you'll react in that kind of scenario. Because for some people, it might be that you start waffling and saying nonsense, and some people just completely clam up and then they can't. And you just don't, until you're in that situation, you don't know how it's going to affect you. And so you can't prepare for it. Like you said.
It's so odd. I mean, I've recounted this like a few times, is that I've got an Apple Watch. So when I look at the heart rate just before I'm about to go on stage, and it's just like 150 beats a minute. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? You know, I'm like,
I have that for gong shows is where I get that. Particularly, I think just because it is like that really overt, we're judging you, and the atmosphere is not really set up for people to do good comedy. It's set up for people to be good entertainment. And it doesn't matter if you're good or bad. And like if you're at King Gong, for example, like you get the distinct impression that they'd rather you were bad because that's better, like entertainment. You know what I mean? God, it's like the closest thing to like a gladiator that
So you've done King Gong?
I think I've done pretty much all of them.
I've watched King Gong, and I've only ever done Beat the Blackout, and as in like the main Gong shows. But every time I watch King Gong, I go, you're not going anywhere near that.
They are bloodthirsty. You know what I mean? It's a Monday night.
Yeah.
It is a Monday night.
Monday night, and there's 450
This is the
people.
beginning. This is how we are starting our weeks.
Yeah.
But having said that, I survived, thankfully, and that could easily be one of the sort of my best moments on stage, because that many people laughing at You know what I mean? A joke you've written is amazing. But yeah.
So what do you see as your ambitions then for the future in comedy? What's the aims?
I don't know if I really have any particular. I kind of, when I started, I wasn't necessarily thinking, and I'll just become a stand-up comedian because I want to be an actor. I enjoy acting. I think I thought that at the very least, I'd get an appreciation, understanding of the technical aspects of comedy. I'd either be able to write it slightly better, or I would be able to perform it better, having had that experience on stage. And, like as an actor, what I would love to be like in a sitcom, like sort of Brooklyn Nine-Nine type thing.
Yeah.
And obviously Andy Samberg comes from, not quite a stand-up background, but like an improv sketch comedy kind of background. But a lot of sitcoms are either written by stand-up comedians or are performed by people who have stand-up, backgrounds.
Yeah.
And so I was like, cool, well, that could lead me to there. So I still would, if any TV producers, any sitcom producers listening, speak to my agents. They'll give you a price. I promise you, I'll do it for less. But also, like, if stand up happens and like I end up, making a living off stand up, or I think I would really love to do right now. I'd love to do like an hour long show. I've written a play, like almost kind of like a 1-person show.
Yeah.
I would love to do like an hour show just to see what that's like. And also to do, like, I do a lot of storytelling, and it's just, you can't do that in like 5 minutes, even like 10 minutes is hard to like do that. And without doing more longer slots, you can't also write for those longer slots, because you end up, I've done 15 minutes and all you're doing is piecing together all of the material that you've written beforehand, but you've written all of that material for 5-minute slots.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have a 6-minute segment where I talk specifically about one thing. Well, not even one thing. Like, I don't know. I think about the great clips that I love, like, Rod Gilbert, for example, him talking about like the electric toothbrush, or the time that Brian Air says, lost his luggage and he only had the handle. You know what I mean? Like, and he does like, it's like minutes on this thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Telling this story. But I think but you can't do that in 5 minutes, because you can't, the audience don't get you quick enough for you to be able to get away with that. So yeah, I think I'm looking, that's my next goal, is work towards a split bill and then maybe like a full hour.
Yeah.
And then we'll see.
Cool. There's nothing wrong with having ambitions and lofty ambitions and stuff. But you've already proven you can write things for an hour.
Well, yeah. It's just about making it all funny this time.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. But then like, that is how you've got to view these things. Like, because if you make things too big and you don't go, okay, it's kind of like this, but a bit more, like that feels achievable. Whereas now if I just went, I've never written an hour of comedy, I'd be like, well, I can't do that then. It's like, you can't do anything until you've done it for the first time. Yeah. I think one of the things that I would love to, there's, I see it on YouTube, a thing called This Is Not Happening, which is, they get comedians, it's a gig where they get comedians to tell stories. And there's a guy called Ali Sadiq who is like, if I could ever be anything like him, I'll have exceeded everything I could have hoped for in comedy. But yeah, he sits on on a stool for most of his stuff. And it's just like, he's a really chill guy, but he is so funny. But he doesn't feel like he tells jokes.
Yeah.
But he is hilarious from start to finish.
Yeah.
From start to finish. And if anyone is listening, just search Ali Sadiq, Mexican Got on Boots. It is one of the funniest things I have ever watched in my life. It's so funny. So about him talking about being part of a prison riot. And he's like, I think like he's in prison for a long time. You think like, how are you making prison this funny? But like he is, man, he's good. But yeah, I just sort of like, I watch that kind of stuff and I go, I don't know, other than getting to the point where I've already done an hour and I've got to a point of like good enough and like known enough that I'm headlining open mic nights, or I'm headlining nights, like proper nights, but the people are saying you can do new material. Like that point, I don't know how you get to a point where you can work on that. You know what I mean? Because I'm never secure enough in myself where I can turn up to, if I'm ever like headlining in quotation marks a night, like doing the sort of longer slot, maybe like the 10 minutes. Then I'm probably going with like most of my best 10 and then maybe throwing in some new stuff in the middle. So it's like a bit for you, a bit for me kind of thing. But I'm never like going there going, well, I'm just going to tell a story and see what happens, because then that's the last time I get to do the 10 minutes at that night, unless for some reason it's just absolutely amazing. But it won't be first time.
No.
So it just sort of feels tough if that's your style.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it makes me think, like I've been listening to various podcasts or listen to various comedians talking about the difficulty of the sort of like either gong show or competition 5 like nature of open mic circuit, where they're at the top and that's what everyone aspires to, because it means you write comedy in a very particular way. Like you start writing that very like clear, concise set up punch style, which is great. But then I've done like one 20 minutes set, and that's a long time, too long to be doing set up punch. It's too long. You need to be able to just talk, find your way around, like do the ebbs and flows of a conversation, even if you're the only person talking with an audience, because they will get bored of that rhythm really easily. You feel it happening. But it makes me think of like some of the comedians that I see on the open mic circuit who have styles where they're not necessarily joke writers, but they are hilarious. And they write like they are, I guess, like jokes, but like people like, for example, Matthew Ali, I think I was having this conversation with recently where he's like, he was talking about not writing like your classic setup punch. He's hilarious.
Yes.
You know what I mean? He's so good, but he doesn't have that style. And in 5 minutes, that's hard. Or Liana Holston, for example, who is, I think is the funniest person in the open mic circuit. I think she is absolutely, I'm so jealous of her ability to say a sentence, and the sentence isn't set up punch, but it is one of the funniest things you will hear. And I think like 5 minutes is, and she's now she's taking a split bill to Edinburgh. You should go see it with Michael McPhee. I know that over like split bill over an hour, she is going to be incredible.
Yeah.
Because she'll be the kind of person that you watch for an hour, and then at the end of the hour, you realize the end of the hour is done. And you've gone, oh, and I was laughing the entire way through. But it's not that she was like telling jokes, but she just is hilarious. And again, like that's hard if you're in a sort of string of 5s. And at that point, it's hard to develop that, or it's easy to go, okay, I'm not good at comedy because you're not fitting into this kind of thing. But like, I mean, the open mic 5 thing is like a false economy in a sense, in that like, it's good to learn how to like write concise material, but it's also, if we're trying to get to like the pro comedy part, if we're trying to get to that level, that's not then what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
and so you need
completely with you.
You need to be able to do the storytelling. You need to be able to do that.
No, I agree with the people you mentioned. I think Matthew Ali's great. I've seen him a few times. And Liana, it's just, I've seen her do 10 minutes and it's so captivating. And it's, I don't know, some people have this knack of pacing, I think, is another thing.
Yeah.
And you see how somebody paces their set in a particular way and has completely understood the power of pausing and stuff like that. And you see somebody do that and you go, why can't I do that? What's stopping me doing that? And it's having spoken to other people where you have the balls to do some joke and then you just let it sit.
Yeah.
And I think so many people on the open mic circuit, myself included, is that you do that joke, you expect the laughter immediately, and you don't get it. You get a bigger laughter if you just wait 2 seconds. But because you're scared of that silence, you start on the next bit because you think, oh, nothing's worked.
Yeah.
And then you carry on, and then everybody's got the previous joke, tried to laugh, and now they can't hear what you're saying now. And then they're like, oh shit, I'm not supposed to laugh, I'll stop again. And then you end up in this whole, you haven't quite understood the power of joke writing as such and letting things sit.
But again, like I think this is not, I don't hate the 5 minute thing at all. But I think again, that's the thing of when you've got 5 minutes and you've got stuff that you want to try. Like I've definitely been doing that. So I'm like, okay, I want to try all these things. And so I've been like jumping in, cutting off people's laughs. Cause I'm like, that's great. But like, listen, I've got 2 more jokes and I've got like a minute and a half left. So like, if we could just like speed this up, you know what I mean? Like, thank you for the laughs, but like, shush now. Kwami's talking. Like that. Not that. Oh God, I sound like an asshole.
No,
but you know what I mean.
you.
But you
I
just
get
like
you.
you just like, oh God, I don't need to do this, but I don't want to go over my time.
Yeah.
And so you're rushing through those things. But so you don't learn about the like. Okay, what if I say a punchline? I let you laugh at it, and then I wait, and then I let you laugh at it again. But you don't like. I haven't learned. I've seen other people do that, but I've never done it myself because I'm either it's time or I don't want to look like the dickhead who like waited for another laugh that didn't come.
Yeah.
And now everyone thinks that I'm really full of myself and think I'm funnier than I am.
That's what Billy Kerr's great at. If you watch him back, now you've got it in your head. Yeah. You're like, well, I tell a joke and he'll just stop. And then you go, yes. And then he'll go again and he'll go again. I'd actually love to take like one of his sets and just see how many jokes there are actually in that 5 minutes.
Sure.
And how many words there are, because I bet, and I don't want this to sound disrespectful, I bet there's not that many, but in terms of words and jokes, but every joke hits and every joke is powerful, and it'll get more laughs than you would doing twice as many jokes, twice as many words. Yeah, and that is, I mean, that's what we all got the stuff we're working on, don't we? Trying to figure it all out, and also like the fact that you'll be better at it than you think you will be, because we're always harsher on ourselves, and when like certain people do certain things just because their general demeanor allows them to do it. And so, I mean, I know I look at people and go, oh, why can't I do that? And then I have to have moments to be like, well, because you're not that, that's just not who you are. You know what I mean? And that's okay. And you have a different style of comedy and a different way of being and a different way of talking to people. And that's fine. Yes.
Doesn't mean you can't learn from what they're doing. And that's why the open mic circuit is so good, because you can constantly be watching other people and being like, oh, that trick that you've just used, I'm definitely stealing that, or I'm trying that for myself.
Yeah.
But then when you're trying it for yourself, it's not, I'm going to do what you did. It's, okay, how does that fit in to the way that I tell jokes? How does that fit into the way I want to be on stage, or the persona that I have?
You say to anybody you're doing comedy, and I think, just writing jokes, but there's so much more to it than just jokes.
There's so much to it. That's why it's an art form. You know what I mean? It's not just bland. It's not like straight down the middle, just entertainment either. It's like there is an art to it. You know what I mean? Like it's a vocation. It's something you have to work at with a craft. And there's like elements of talent involved there as well. But like it's a lot of hard work, and a lot of the hard work is on stuff that you would never imagine. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like the sort of position yourself. So, I mean, I've had times where like I've looked at the walk up to a stage and gone, right, I can't sit on this side because I know that this table or this person has all these bags. And if I'm the other side of them, I'm going to be so in my head about just getting past them without looking like tripping over or looking like I don't know what I'm doing, that I will walk on stage and I won't be in it. So I just go, cool. I'm just going to have to I'm not going to be there. I'm going to be on this side so that the walk up is clear. And it's not even because I'm going to do it. It's just so that I don't trip over that stuff so I can do my job. Yeah. But no one is there going, oh, how much time do you spend just looking at the audience members and thinking, how big is that rucksack? No one expects that. No, but those are the things that go through your head, or wearing certain clothes because, you either don't want to give off a certain impression, or I have trousers that the sort of shell tracksuit type thing. So if you're wearing those, you go, okay, if I wear that, I'm going to be rustling all over the place. It's all I'm going to be able to think of.
Yeah. It's weird. I don't know if it's when you do, your brain just goes off and thinks of something really that it doesn't feel like it's relevant.
Oh yeah.
And it's just I don't know, it's kind of the equivalent of, leaving the house and did you leave the cooker on kind of thing. You've just got that other distraction in you. And it's no, I checked it. I know I did. Yes, I've still got my keys and I've got my phone and I've got my wallet. I'm fine. But you still have that. Have you? Did you forget? No. What? And yeah, my brain's very much like that. Just did I put that on charge? Did I do that? Whatever it is, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but 100%. Do you still
go on?
Do you still open with a Badil t-shirt?
Sometimes.
Right, yeah.
Sometimes. I got to the point where I did a few gigs and people didn't really kind of get it. Okay. Which is an odd feeling at times. So I needed another way to kind of introduce it, and I wanted to do it without the t-shirt. And there was also a point where, I don't know if it was last year, where it was really quite a warm summer. I'm like, I can't walk the streets wearing this T-shirt. And I don't want to take a bag with me to a gig. I'm just happy to go in jeans and a T-shirt because it's so nice out there. So what I started to do was introduce it in a different way, in that I would I do like a lookalikes thing. So I'd say I've been told I look like certain people, and I just list Jewish people like John Oliver, Ben Elton, and get the crowd to then come back and say yes or no. And then I would just kind of like go and David Baddiel, and they go, oh yeah. And then I've introduced that element of it. And then, but I tend to only do that if I want to introduce Jewishness into my set.
Okay.
So there's a piece in my current bit where the punchline at the end relies on you knowing that I'm Jewish. And if I don't introduce that at the start, there's part of my brain that goes, do they know that straight away? So I needed like a concise way to introduce that, and that kind of became a little fun way of doing it. And it also brought the audience kind of on board, in that I didn't have, they're part of it. They're part of the act in a way, because they've contributed to it, which I always think is kind of this might sound controversial, but if your jokes, I don't feel some of my jokes are good enough to get an immediate laugh. So using that gets them on side. If you come on and you tell,
sure, I see what you mean. Okay, yeah.
Like the T-shirt thing, there's a little clip I put up on Instagram, I think, of me walking onto the stage with it, and I've not said a word, and everyone is laughing already. And having that validation before you've really started, gives you confidence.
Yeah, and I mean that's why opening jokes are so important. And you know, when my opening jokes I wrote a long time ago and just use them constantly. Like that's what I start opening with, because it starts me off on a good foot.
Yeah. And that's what the T-shirt did for me for so long. But then I have to be aware that sometimes the crowd's they're maybe not of the right age. He's not in the news as much or something. And
I feel like I hear about him constantly.
Yeah, in certain circles you will do, but in some circles you don't. And I did it when I did a gig the other day, and I went through the list of names because I knew the crowd I weren't sure if the T-shirt would land. So I thought, I'm not going to do the T-shirt. So I went through the list of names, and I was getting reactions back, and then as soon as I said David Baddiel, like the whole front row just went, oh yeah. It's like, okay, I've got that bit in, and I've got a laugh out of it. Let's move on. Or sometimes I'll say, I've been told I look like David Baddiel, and everyone goes, yeah, and I go, I've never heard of him. And that always gets a nice little reaction as well. Because it's just me being playful and funny and stupid.
Yeah.
That works. But yeah. Here's one for you then. So things do go well, and you do create your hour show. Or Netflix come knocking, or Apollo comes knocking, and you have to pick your opening track to walk onto the stage to. What do you go for?
So the couple of times that I've done it, I've gone for Point and Kill by Little Sims, which is it's just groovy. There's no I wish I had an answer that was sort of like almost be a joke for when I walked out on stage. But actually, I think it just puts me in a good mood, makes me feel good. And then I feel like I'm starting a good place, and it is an absolute banger. Yeah. So I might do that, or I might just go with the sort of, the unofficial UK national anthem, which of course is Talking the Hardest by Giggs.
Okay.
Just go severe grime. But, no, the national anthem. No, I would not do that.
No. I thought you were going to say, what's the song they sing at the football all the time?
Oh,
Sweet Caroline.
Sweet Caroline.
Oh, don't.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Please, no.
Banger, but no.
No.
But yeah, I think I think I would just, what I enjoy about comedy is, as opposed to acting, is I get to just be myself, really, really just myself, and just talk as myself to the audience. Yeah. And so, because I really enjoy that, let me just start off with a song that makes me feel puts me feeling like me.
Yeah.
And in a good mood, and do that. And also they'll be vibing along as well. So yeah, my final answer, Mark, can't change my mind. Going Little Sims, Point and Kill.
No, I always think it's always nice to have that, and you can be playful with it as well, because I did one where I came on stage the other day to Casey and the Sunshine Band, Give It Up. And it's nice, happy tune.
What song is that?
Casey and the Sunshine Band, Give It Up.
Do I have to go find that on Spotify? Is that you refusing to sing it?
Yes.
It's not the giving on.
No.
That one?
No.
Nothing can stop me.
No.
All right. Okay, I'm going to play it. For copyright reasons, you may not be able to play this. I'm just going to play it on my phone. So you can cut it. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, what a tune. That's such a good choice.
My idea, I like to get, this is where I think I'm better at creative ideas than joke writing. I was going to try and come on stage to that. And at the moment it says give it up, it was going to be like, give it up for the MC.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Do you know what I mean? Do silly things like that. And I love fucking about and playing around with stuff like that when I know it's going to work. And yeah, that was that. But I got the timing completely wrong. The song was going on for too long. And I'm on stage going,
Fantastic.
Oh, come on, get out, sod it, let's just go on. Pick the wrong starting point and completely misjudged how long I'd be on stage for.
Yeah.
But that's half the fun. That's half the fun with comedy for me.
Man, definitely.
So talking of fun, as you've listened to these, you know what's coming next.
I do. And you know what? A lot of times when I've listened, I've been like, oh, you know what? That joke, make that work. And then the last two that I've listened to, I just feel like that is absolutely diabolical. What was the one I was listening to the other? Who was it?
Was it Chris Alley one?
The joke was, because I haven't listened, the joke was, what do you call cheese that's not yours? Nacho cheese.
Yeah.
I can't remember who it was. I'll find it on my thing. It was one of the more recent ones, I think, but I haven't listened in order.
Okay, cool.
So it's not always the most recent one, the one I've just listened to. But anyways, I remember thinking, God, if I get one like that, I'm done. But yeah. How many pages are there?
There's you got to pick a number. I'll explain this for those first time listeners. I like to set a comedians a challenge to tell a joke from a joke book called The Little Book of Shit Jokes by Sid Finch. And just to prove, if you watch this on a video, you will see this book does actually exist. The comedians get to pick the joke they tell, but only get to pick it by page number. So what they get, I don't know. It's a complete and utter mystery. And the idea for them is to tell it on stage, whether they break their set and tell the joke, or if they try and incorporate it into their set. Whatever, they can choose what they want. They can also change parts of the joke as well if they want to. If it makes it fit better with their set, then go for it. But as long as the premise kind of stays the same. So yeah, I need a number between 5 and 95. And if you pick one that's already been picked, we have to keep going until we get one that's not.
I'm just going to go 95 in the hopes that Sid Finch wrote 94 awful jokes and then went, I'm going to finish with an absolute banger.
95 has already gone.
94.
Okay. The joke I want you to tell on stage is, my grandma bet me I couldn't build a motorbike out of spaghetti. Oh, fucking hell. You should have seen her face when I drove past her.
Yeah, I'll take page 93 then, please, Mike.
What has a funny smell and flies? Mouldy cheese.
Oh, God. Okay, so what was it? My grandma bet me I couldn't build a motorbike out of pasta.
Out of spaghetti.
No, out of spaghetti. You should have seen her face when I drove past her.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, from a structural point of view, it's a good joke.
There's been worse.
Yeah. No, yeah. Fantastic. Right. And then you know what? In the spirit of this, I'm committing to not revealing that. I just have to give it as if I've come up with this.
Yep.
Joke.
Fair enough.
All right.
I admire that.
Right.
I admire that.
Thank you. I mean, I might quit comedy because of the reception to it.
Yeah, don't do it at an important gig.
Mark. That'll be on you. Next competition I get to, it's just.
I've seen who you're gigging with tonight. Don't do it then.
Yeah. No, I reckon I'll skip that.
I would. I guess lastly, kind of, where can people find you then online?
You can find me on Twitter, Kwami Odoom. I'm one of the last people on. To be fair, I'm trying to move off it, so don't follow me on Twitter. Instagram, Kwami O Comedy. It's KWAMIO Comedy. And I'm on TikTok at kwami.odoom. Yeah, that's me.
Cool. You can find us on Instagram, Open Mic Comedy Pod. We've got a website, openmiccomedypod.com. Whichever platform you're listening to this on, please give it a like, follow, subscribe, and all that jazz. It gets us up the charts and gets all these lovely comedians to be heard by a bigger audience. So lastly, thank you so much for your time today. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Really enjoyed it, man. Really enjoyed it.
And for everybody else, I will speak to you all very, very soon.